Welcome to the real life show, Living with a Chronic Illness. We are your hosts, Cassie and Chelsea. I'm Cassie, a single mom living with a chronic illness who is extremely passionate about living a full and happy life.
And I'm Chelsea. I have a passion for helping people to put themselves first and to be the best version of themselves each and every day.
We came together to create the Spoonies Hub, an uplifting community that offers resources, guidance, support, and offers you the space to be yourself, be heard, and feel understood. We hope that by providing tips and tricks from experts, we help people with chronic conditions to thrive and live the lives they've dreamed of.
This show is not only for those who live with a chronic illness or disability, but their friends, family, spouses, and just anyone else existing on the earth. Our goal is to normalize having a chronic condition by sharing real stories with real people and to show the world how relatable those everyday struggles can be. There's a little something in here for everyone.
And a special shout out to our community at the Spoonies Hub. Thanks to your contributions, we are able to provide flexible work opportunities for Spoonies, donate to our nonprofit to help provide wellness treatments for those who need it, and be able to transcribe our podcast to make it more accessible for all. To learn more, visit our show notes.
Enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the real life show, Living with a Chronic Illness. We have a great interview today with Divya Dhawan. Divya is a certified integrative nutrition health coach and helps people with Sjögren syndrome recover their vitality. Her mission is to help people suffering with Sjögren syndrome heal themselves and learn the lifestyle changes needed to go from dis-ease to ease. She has personally suffered with Sjögren syndrome 7 years ago, and her journey of natural self-healing has led her to become a health coach. She is passionate about helping others and spread the light of healing and overall well-being in the process.
Divya was a light to talk to. I feel like I say that about all of our guests, but she just has this amazing energy around her. She shared about what Sjögren's is. She's our first guest with Sjögren's on the show, so we're very excited to be able to bring some awareness to a whole new diagnosis that's out there. So we hope that our listeners with Sjögren's appreciate getting a little bit of extra love in this episode. Divya gave us some really, really good tips on managing flares, stress management, which is so important, and even throws in a few essential oil tips as well. She has some amazing resources available for you as well, and we will talk about those in the show. Can't wait for you to hear it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Real Life Show, Living with a Chronic Illness. Cassie and I are here with Divya Dhawan today. Hi, Divya.
Hi, Casey. Hi, Chelsea. So nice to be here.
So nice to have you.
Thank you so much for coming on. We're so excited to chat with you. Can you start off by telling our listeners a little bit about who you are, your story, and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Yes, absolutely. Sure. So my name is Divya Dhawan, and I am a certified holistic health coach. And I help especially women with Sjögren syndrome recover their vitality. Now, before I start going into my own story, I'll first like to tell about what Sjögren's is, because many people do not know about what Sjögren syndrome is.
Please do. We love listening to descriptions of illnesses, so then that way others can learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is a disorder. It's again an autoimmune disorder, and it is a systemic autoimmune disorder in which all the wet glands start drying up. So the eyes, the mouth, the nose, vagina for women, and even the skin starts drying up. And that's just the primary symptoms that happen with Sjögren's. And since it's a systemic disorder, it also affects all the other systems in the body, like the gastrointestinal, the kidneys, the liver, the pancreas, and even neuropathy happens because of this. And in very rare cases, it's also a disorder. It's also followed by a disorder which is called dysautonomia, which is the failure of the central nervous system. I'm sorry. And so that is what Sjögren syndrome is. It really depends. It's very different for every person. So a person can have dry eyes and dry mouth and fatigue, but not the other symptoms. And some people can have all the other symptoms, but not so much of dry eyes and dry mouth, and so on and so forth. So it's very different for everyone because everyone is very different. So it all started with me a couple of years ago, which was about 7 years ago in the springtime. And I was a very typical I come from India, so I was a very typical Indian, overworked, tired mom. Caring for my family, and I love doing that. I don't complain about that. But in that whole process, I forgot about myself. And then, so one day I got flu, and in the springtime it's a springtime, everyone was getting flu. I was like, okay, I'll just bounce back, and things will go back to normal. But as soon as that flu ended, and when I was hoping that I will get better, suddenly all my joints one by one started aching. And after the joints, my muscles started aching, and I started developing psoriasis in my legs, and my eyes started drying out. All the sandpaper feeling started coming in my eyes. And at that point, I started running from one doctor to another because I was in a very desperate situation. My family was miserable looking at me, doing that all the time. I was literally living on painkillers. So, as soon as the pain went away, the effect of the painkiller went away in 4 hours. I was again in that gripping pain. And it was really literally a gripping pain. It just gripped me. I couldn't breathe. And I just had to give in and just sit down and go to sleep maybe and forget it for some time, take some painkillers, and then get back to normal, get to work. But this is how I spent like 3 or 4 months of being in Sjögren syndrome and not knowing that I have Sjögren syndrome. And so I was running from one doctor to another. And so I also went to a rheumatologist who told me that he doesn't know, what it is. And it was difficult for him to diagnose because of all the different symptoms that I had and not so typical symptoms that I had. But then eventually a rheumatologist was able to diagnose that I had Sjögren syndrome, and I was put on the medication. And I was like, okay, now we've found it. Probably now I'm going to get some relief, and this is going to go away. And I started the medication, of course. But when I started reading up the effects of the medication would have poisoned my eyes in like 6 or 7 years. And I was at that point, although I was very happy that I know that I have Sjögren syndrome now, I was again helpless. And, I was like, I don't want to go that path. That, I didn't want to do that give and take, like I get my life back at the cost of my eyes. You know what I mean? And then, so that's the point when I really decided. And there was a voice in my head, of course, which I always say that I listened to, which said that this is not how I should be living, and there is a way out. And I really just did all the trials and errors on myself, used myself as a living lab. Yoga was the biggest thing that helped me. And I did a lot of supplementations. And I also did a lot of lifestyle changes, which actually eventually helped me to get back my life and heal myself. And I still remember that day when in one of those yoga classes when, so I was in a shape where I couldn't sit down on the floor. And if I did sit up, it used to take me like a solid 2 minutes to get up, by trying to, move this side and move that side and then hold something and then get up. But I still remember that day in the yoga class when I eventually believed that I'm healing, when I was able to bend myself down and get back without any help. And I actually started crying. And those were the tears of joy that came in my eyes and made me believe that, yes, I am healing. And that was the aha moment for me.
That's so amazing.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And that journey has been continuing for 7 years, and I have healed myself. I'm still Sjögren's. The tests are always positive for the antibodies, but I don't have any symptoms anymore. And even if I do get some symptoms here and then, I'm able to manage them. So this whole journey that I have covered in these 7 years has really inspired me to help those people who are suffering right now and who believe that this is going to be their life, and who believe that this is lifelong, and who believe that there's no way out, whereas the reality is there is. And if I can, then they can too.
That's so inspiring.
Thank you so much.
I love hearing people's stories and then getting to talk to people like you, Divya, that took your life experience and are now using it to help others that are going through the same thing that you went through. I think it's so incredible that you figured out a way to get yourself through that super crappy time in your life. It's that pain. It's not fun to experience, and then take that and have the strength to help others. It's very inspiring. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I absolutely love what I'm doing.
Yay.
And that's my reason.
Yeah. So it's always nice when you get to talk to someone who loves what they're doing. You can always feel that right away. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little curious about what form of yoga you were doing that you found such a benefit from.
So I was doing the Bikram style yoga, the hot yoga.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I know I've talked to a lot of people who like swear by hot yoga. I haven't tried it because I'm terrified of like doing yoga in the heat and like fainting or something. Because sometimes if it's too hot out, I'm just like, feel like I'm going to die. But I have heard so many people love it and have huge benefits from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I mean, absolutely any form of yoga is very helpful because it, the very word yoga means uniting the body and the soul. So when everything comes in union and everything comes in alignment, that is what we're all seeking anyway in our lives. So when that happens, healing starts from within. So, but hot yoga is something that, yes, in the beginning, it was difficult for me too. But, body gets used to it. It is hot, but the body gets used to it.
The body gets used to it, yeah.
The good thing about hot yoga that I think is with Sjögren syndrome, there's a lot of blockages in the sweat glands that happens. So that gets the lymphatic system flowing too.
Oh, that's interesting. Right. That makes perfect sense. And I also really related to you having, tears, happy tears, because you felt yourself healing. I had the exact same feeling with Pilates. I remember one time just lying down on the reformer and I just had tears streaming down my eyes. Anyways, I had that same feeling. I lay down on the Pilates reformer and I just experienced, I want to say, like a relaxation in my body, a way that we talked to Nitika Chopra on a podcast, and she had just started actually doing Pilates at the time. And so Chelsea and I were excited because we're both Pilates instructors. And Nitika was saying that sometimes it can be really hard for people with a chronic illness to start doing different forms of movement because you do have to be in touch with your body and for that mind-body connection. And sometimes that can be really hard, to be in your body. And I thought she put that perfectly. And I think in that time for me, when I laid on the reformer and I had done a little bit of movement, but I felt my body relax. I felt trust with my instructor. I felt my body let go. I felt a little bit of pain relief in this movement. And I felt like, oh my gosh, movement can heal. I'm doing something nourishing for my body. This is part of what I need to heal. So I love that you shared that was a similar experience for you with yoga, because that was a life-changing moment for me. And part of why I'm a Pilates instructor and why Chelsea and I both really advocate for movement being a healing modality.
Yeah, that's true. And as a part of my program also, I do promote doing yoga, especially because it has such deep mind-body effects.
Yeah.
And it affects not just the body, but the mind. And it really activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And so I can understand how it happened to you too.
Yeah, that's so fun. It's fun to find some kind of a shared experience in that way.
Yeah.
So you were saying that now you are relatively symptom-free. Like you said, your markers still come back that you're positive for Sjögren's. What else are you doing for treatment for yourself right now that's gotten you into, I guess, would you consider it a state of remission?
I do consider that a state of remission. In fact, some time ago, when I think about this was 3 years after I had the Sjögren. So I still kept going to my rheumatologist to, get my checkups done. And he was like, I mean, you're symptom free. And although your markers are positive, you're completely symptom free. Why do you want to waste your money? You're fine. Just,
That's
So,
cool.
yeah. So I do consider myself in remission. I mean, and I wouldn't say that I'm relatively symptom free. I'm actually symptom free. I don't have
Wow.
They do pop in here and there trying to tell me you're not taking care of yourself. Hey, they nudge me and they tell me, and I understand those signs, and I do take care of myself then, and they're taken care of.
Yeah. Okay. That's amazing. Yay. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations. So Divya, what all are you doing right now for your lifestyle or for that treatment that has essentially led you into remission and is keeping you there?
So it's a lot of things that I needed to do over the period of 7 years. So yoga was one of them. Changing my food habits was one of them. Then there's so many toxins around us. Like our life is filled with toxins. So, removing all those toxins was one of them. Of course, we cannot get rid of everything, but minimizing the toxins is other thing. And then I think stress management has been a very, very big part of it, because we are not taught how to manage stress. We grow up understanding that, if there is stress, we have to be stressed.
Yeah.
That's just a normal stress response. And so understanding how to take care of that stress, how to process the emotions has been a really big part of my transformation for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm reading this book right now. I just started it last night. I'm pretty sure it's called The United States of Anxiety. So just the title, I was like, yeah, I'm buying this book. And so I just started it last night on my Kindle, and she was doing the final edits in March of 2020 on her book. So the introduction is a letter. We were 1 week into COVID and the country being locked down. And then the book came out in October, which was pretty interesting. But anyway, in there, she talked about how some of the statistics for the last decade or so for our country are some of the best statistics that we've ever had. Infant mortality rates are the lowest, and, unemployment rates right before COVID were at the lowest, and all these other really amazing statistics. So she's like, if you look at the data, we as people should actually be doing the best thus far as humanity, but we have the worst anxiety, the worst depression, the worst stress levels that have ever been. And she's like, we have to examine why. And so, like I said, I just started the book last night. And so she's obviously going into that for the book, but it was another reminder of how much stress affects chronic disease and chronic illness. Yeah. And I know that I personally kept being in denial about that. I'm pretty strong-willed. And so I'd be like, no, stress doesn't affect me. And my willpower would be like, I'm fine. But my body would be like, the stress is getting to me, And for years, I looked at it separately. I was like, no, my mind handles stress really well. It's my body that won't handle the stress. Until then I obviously realized, no, they're totally connected, mind-body connection, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so what are some of your stress relief things that you like to do?
That's what I wanted to ask.
I just had a really long-winded question for that.
No. That's a great question, actually, because that's the most important part that everyone, we all need to tap into. How do we manage stress? And so we all have things which really help us get away from stress very easily. For me, it's like music. So if I just, listen to music, it takes me into another zone. And the kind of music I love, of course. And then when I'm in that other zone, I'm obviously stress-free. I just forget about all the stressors that are causing that kind of stress to me in that moment. And apart from music, it's also gardening, going out in the nature, working with my plants. They really help me ground and forget about, all the stress that I have. And there are many other things, like I love doing meditations. They really help me ground and center, and I don't know, they take me into another zone, and it just calms my mind so much. So these are the three main things that I do. There might be more, but these are the three main things that I love doing to manage my stress. Music being on top of them. And of course, I love diffusing oils. So diffusing oils amazingly has a amazing effect on the brain, because that gives the brain the sign that everything is fine, because you won't do that when you're in a situation where you're running from a lion, right?
It's very
Which
true.
is a sympathetic mode. So yeah.
That's interesting.
So do you recommend people just finding those things that just allow them to calm down, allow them to de-stress and relax, and then use those as much as possible?
Absolutely, yeah, because it is going to be different for everyone. So for me, if music is calming, might not be calming for you, or the kind of music that is calming for me might not be calming for you. Some oils may work for me while they won't work for you. Gardening might work for me while it might be a stress for someone else. So trying to find out what really works for yourself is the key.
I think that's really good advice.
I love music too.
Yeah.
It is like, it is, I listen to music because I also listen to, currently at night, there's a meditate to the sounds of nature playlist that I'm listening to on Spotify. And so it's pretty fun because I'll be waking up as I'm turning over in the night and I hear birds chirping and I was like, oh, nature. And I swear for the first few days and probably weeks actually that I started listening to that playlist at night, I thought that the nature was right outside my window and kind of completely forgot that I was actually listening to a playlist. So I recommend that one. But I probably listen to music, no joke, 18 to 20 hours a day. I mean, I just always have it on in the background, and it is so healing for me too. There was one time that I was just in one of those moments like you were talking about with just gripping pain where I couldn't do anything. And I was in that space for, I don't know, around an hour or two. And when I was able to slightly come out of it, I texted Chelsea and I was just like, I don't feel good. And I was just crying. And I was just like, I don't know how to keep going, and I wanted to reach out to her because she and I had just started this podcast, our community. And so I was learning to be more open and raw in those moments. And Chelsea was kind of helping me do that so that we could find ways to help other people. So in that moment in time, Chelsea asked, what would you need right now that would be helpful? And I wrote back and I was like, all I could do is listen to music and just lay in bed and just get lost in the music.
Yeah. Yeah. And so probably that's what your body wanted to do that time.
Yeah. That's exactly, I mean, that's all I wanted. That's all I could do. And I even remember having infusions and feeling a lot of side effects from them afterwards, and just lying in bed and listening to a song on repeat. And it's actually got Aretha Franklin, and the lyrics are just really empowering.
Ooh, I like Aretha Franklin.
I'll have to send you this song. It's kind of a remix, but it is one of my I got power songs. And so yeah, music is a big healing thing for me too.
Yeah.
Big one.
In fact, in Indian culture, music, so in Indian culture, the music is, so all the musical, like do, re, mi, fa, so, all the musical, there's a formations that they make, and they're called rags. And so every rag actually is for healing one, all the 7 chakras. So it's connected to the chakras too.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's cool. I like that too.
Yeah. I like music and energy and all that together.
Yeah, just trying to put forward my viewpoint on how music can be healing, and how in different cultures also music is used as a healing modality.
Yeah, very cool.
Hey everyone, I know you're all cozy listening to our episode, but I wanted to take a moment to let you know how you can become even more cozy with some Spoonie merch. All right, so we got a merch store. Hopefully you've looked at it. If you haven't, that's okay. That's why I'm telling you about it now. We got some cool stuff on there. There's sweatshirts. There's long sleeve shirts, there's t-shirts, there's tank tops, there's stuff that just says the real life show living with a chronic illness, so you can rep our podcast. But there's also stuff on there to just celebrate the Spoonie life you are living. We've got comfy stuff with, this is my all out of spoons outfit. So when you're not feeling your best, you can get all comfy cozy with a shirt that tells the world that you ain't feeling great and leave you alone, if that's your thing. We've also got stuff to help inspire you. I have a long sleeve shirt from our merch store that says dream, be happy, seek fulfillment, live your best life. And every time I put on that long sleeve shirt, I just feel so inspired and ready to take on the world. And it just reminds me that there's great stuff happening. So if you are interested in getting some Spoonie merch of your own, you can either head over to our website, therealspooniesunite.com, or the easiest thing is honestly just to swipe up or swipe down or whatever direction you need to get to the show notes, because the link will be there. Now back to the show.
And I am not a gardener. I sometimes fantasize about gardening, like I would love it. I do have some house plants inside that have survived extremely well, and I'm a good houseplant lady. But I have noticed that throughout my life, I love to walk around barefoot. And I noticed in the last few years that I really missed like walking around in the yard barefoot. And then there's this whole movement about grounding, going and like standing on the grass so that you can connect with the earth. And I'm sure that when you're gardening, you probably get to experience some of that too.
Yeah. And so the thing with me is I don't like wearing gloves or stuff to cover my hands, because the whole point is getting in touch with the nature and getting in touch with the earth. So why cover my hands? I'll just come and wash them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
so grounding, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Yeah.
So the grounding thing is real, because many people find relief by just connecting with the earth in that way, by walking barefoot not on concrete, but on earth.
Yeah, exactly. On the earth. Yeah. I remember, I think it was in February of this year that I was just feeling that feeling when you're kind of like floating around above your body, when you feel like you're not really like in it, you're not centered, you're not grounded, pun intended. And so I was like, I'm just going to go stand outside. And it was cold, but it was the first time that I don't know, there wasn't frost on the grass and everything. And so I went and stood, and my feet were so cold, but I swear I did feel better just because it was winter. It was February, none of us had really been walking around barefoot probably for months at that point in time. And I just stood there on the phone with somebody and like walked around in the grass with my feet. And then I was like, oh, it does feel good. And I really did feel just a little bit more in tune, a little bit more centered after that. And I say that as I'm like looking out in my yard. I don't know, when I'm going and looking for my cat and stuff, I always try to walk around barefoot just to try and make that connection.
Yeah. In this modern life, we have all lost the connection with the nature and the earth that as during the evolution we used to have, but we've lost it now. So it's really good to do that, for sure.
It is good to do that. Yeah. Kind of like longing for some of those times that it talked about that in that book I was reading last night too, like just the differences in even like flying in 1970 to now. And, I don't know. It's just, it's pretty interesting. And I think during this time with the pandemic, I know that I've tried to connect with some of the things that really make you feel good outside of the hustle and bustle that is life. And I even felt myself yesterday feeling a little bit of sadness, like there was all this really positive news about the vaccine coming out and how the world will hopefully be back to normal by like summer next year, early summer, late spring. And I was like so ready for that and excited. And I felt this little like pang of, I don't know if it was anxiety or sadness, where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go back to the hustle and bustle though. I've liked being forced to slow down. Yeah. And so it was definitely a moment that I checked in with myself, like, okay, I'm going to have to, I will be responsible for making those changes when the world does go back into hustle and bustle life. I'm going to need to be the one who makes those limits and those boundaries rather than, the state government with lockdowns and stuff, And some of
that's
that,
the thing that you've learned, that you need that calm in your life and you need to get away from the hustle and bustle, because that's stress for us too again.
Mhm.
it is.
We always come back to stress, don't we?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big thing.
So what are, so Divya, you were saying that you're a holistic health coach.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you go over when you're working with a client? And do you do virtual clients? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mostly do virtual programs. So my program is virtual. Everything happens on the Zoom and it's one-on-one. And in my program, I always talk about all the things that I have used in my own life to heal myself. And then the holistic health coach training has made me learn a lot. So I use all those things in my program. It is one-on-one, and it is also on Zoom. So there's no need for anyone to, for face-to-face. It is still face-to-face, but not in person. It's virtual.
That's
Very
nice.
good. So Divya, are you only working with people that have Sjögren's, or are you working with kind of a wide variety of chronic illnesses and autoimmune issues?
I do work with Sjögren's, people with Sjögren's mainly, but other autoimmune also. It really depends. I have to really evaluate if I can help them or not.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you just said that you have to evaluate if you can help them, because I think that there's sometimes this perception that if you're a coach or you have a product or a program or a service or whatever it is, that you're just like, oh yeah, I can help everybody. And I think that the good coaches out there like yourself, you know that you can't help everybody in the same way. And so, you're very aware of who you can help the most. And so I love that part of it is evaluating of, am I the right fit for you? I think that that's just so amazing and makes you so trustworthy.
I don't want to commit. I don't want to commit to someone that I can help you when I, in reality, might not be able to. So it's really a point of my evaluating and understanding whether I can, that this person is a good fit for each other or not. So that's really an important part of how I start the work.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
So for anyone listening that's like, I don't know if Divya can help me, just ask her. She'll tell you.
Yeah. They can always book a complimentary call with me where we can talk and, understand each other and see if I can help them or not.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So what are your, we like to ask people sometimes what your go-to flare triage things are. So that way you're not, sounds like going through a lot of flares yourself right now, but what were those go-to things that you would use to help you start to feel better or just kind of make it through on those extra cruddy days?
Sure. So the first thing that I would like to say is that for anyone who's getting into a flare, I would like for them to observe the pattern. Why is that happening? Is it a food triggering it? Is it the stress that is triggering it? What is it that is, what change have they made in their lives which is actually triggering that kind of flare up in them? And then the first part is understanding what is making it happen so they can eliminate it. And then second is, for me, I always, I do yoga. So whenever I feel that there's a trigger coming in, I'm flaring up. So yoga is my go-to triage. And then I have some supplements like Boswellia and Triphala, which I use, which are my go-to supplements, so to say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think the advice of figuring out what changed in your life is really great. And actually, before we started recording, Cassie and I were talking because Cassie's going through a pretty intense infusion situation right now with a change in her medication. And so Cassie's not feeling the best.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling very good. I don't feel 100% today. And I told Chelsea, I'm like, I didn't feel 100% yesterday either. And I wasn't sure what it was. And I was trying to look, I was like, when is my period? What did I eat? Did I take any other medications? And that's exactly what we were talking about right before we brought you on the call, was seeing if there was something different to identify. I don't know that there is, but yeah, I just feel a little off.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time there is, because flare-ups and all the symptoms are really the body telling us something is not right. And so tapping into that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be the estrogen, when the periods are coming in, estrogen is high. So the body.
Yeah, because mine's gonna be next week.
Again.
And I always feel like it's like the week before. I usually, at least I think my pattern has been that I usually feel worse the week before than when I'm actually like on my period for me. And I thought I remembered Lori Gray saying some statistics about that, about like the week before that your hormones are doing some interesting stuff, right?
Right. The estrogen goes up just because it's preparing your body to do the work during the periods. So high estrogen can also shoot up the cortisol in the body, and cortisol is the stress hormone.
Yeah. Well, that would explain it, because I'm also like teary. I'm just sort of like, I don't know. I feel off. I'm like a little nauseous. My temperature feels a little off. But I was telling Chelsea, like, I don't have a fever. I just internally feel like I can't regulate my temperature. And then even with you talking about the chakras and the lymphatic system with your hot yoga, I said to Chelsea that because I had fistula surgery, and so I'm having a lot of rectal and pelvic pain these days. And so I'm sitting on my hot water bottle, and I said to Chelsea, I was like, that chakra down there really makes you hot if you're like sitting on a hot water bottle, And so it's funny, even with you saying that, we were literally just talking about that too, right before you hopped on.
Yeah. It's funny how the minds meet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So but you're right. Like looking back, and I think I know that we've talked on other episodes too, that when you are having a little bit of a flare, there's that part of reflecting in your few days or a few weeks back of what possibly different could have caused this or helped triggered it. And then there's also that part of kind of surrendering to just, you have a chronic illness and sometimes it just flares up and you don't totally know what's going on. And I think getting in tune with when it's a new feeling or if it's a similar feeling to what you've had, that also can help. Because that's another thing I said to Chelsea. I was like, I don't feel like this isn't a feeling I've never had before. I just am not quite sure what this feeling is, but I know I've had it before, and that I haven't quite felt this way for a while. And that's when Chelsea and I were talking, and I was like, I think it probably is the infusions, because I'm in a loading dose, and today is my third dose at the loading dose. So I've had 3 infusions in 6 weeks, which normally would be 1 every 8 weeks. And so I was like, I kind of think that's probably what's going on. I guess I'll know soon enough. But but it could be the period stuff too, like you said. I mean, being a woman is hard. We have so much going on.
Yeah, all the time. No one knows that.
Yeah. And the hormones and, I remember seeing an acupuncturist in Montana a few years ago, and I was talking about how, and this is what I said to Chelsea too, right before. Chelsea, we talked for like 5 minutes about this, but we really got to it, didn't we?
We did.
And and I told her too that it used to be that almost monthly I would feel like I'm having a fever or like the flu, and I would have really painful periods and really painful cramping. And I was talking to an acupuncturist about this in Montana, and I remember her saying to me, your periods shouldn't be painful. They shouldn't be uncomfortable. You shouldn't feel like you're bleeding to death. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. And she was the first healthcare practitioner that just straight up said, like, black and white, they're not supposed to be horrible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's so interesting that also I have been reading this book called Vagina Problems by Lara Parker, and she has endometriosis and vulvodynia and some other things. And she talks in the book about how one of her OBGYNs was straight up like, well, yeah, it's normal for periods to be painful. That's just how they are.
Oh, no.
I know.
No.
And I was like, oh my gosh,
That's
I'm so great.
normal.
No, it's not normal. And so I felt so grateful that I had a healthcare practitioner. She was an acupuncturist, but say, no, it's not normal. It's not supposed to be like that, because it validated, that in a way.
Yeah. And then many essential oils which help with periods too. And we can talk about that.
Ooh,
cool.
Actually, yes. Do you have some essential oil tips for us to people to learn from you? As you seem to be a very knowledgeable person when it comes to essential oils.
Yeah. So right now when we're talking about Casey, so I recently started with doTERRA, and this is how it happened. My daughter had started from about a year or two to have very, very painful periods. And she's very young. She's a teenager. And it was to the point that she just has to lie down on the bed the whole day long with a hot water bottle on her belly to ease the pain. And I was desperate to find a solution for her. So with doTERRA, I found this oil blend called Clary Calm. And it's a roller bottle. You just rub it on your lower abdomen every single day. And it has helped her immensely. So, I would suggest giving it a try.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of doTERRA oils, but I don't have that one.
I think essential oils are really interesting. They're just fascinating.
Yeah.
To me.
And so the thing with oils is they help balance the hormones in the body. And when the hormones balance out, the cramping and everything just goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we actually, our person next week that we're interviewing, Chelsea, is all about essential oils. So we're actually doing a whole episode about, and they work for I think there's two people actually, and one of them works for doTERRA. So we're going to be getting to get deep into this next week, which will be really fun.
Well, that's cool. I'm going to be listening to that.
Yay! I don't know when it's airing, but we're doing the interview next week. So you'll have to stay tuned.
Yeah, I'll stay tuned. Yeah.
So Divya, if someone wants to learn more about you, connect with you, learn about your coaching, get some more essential oil information from you, where can they find you on the internet?
Sure. So I am on Facebook, Divya Dhawan. You can find me by my name. I'm on Instagram, Sjögren's Health Coach Divya. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Divya Dhawan again. And apart from that, I have a Facebook group where I talk about, where I'm going to start talking about essential oils. I do talk about a lot about Sjögren's, so it is relating to Sjögren's. And the group is called Sjögren's or Autoimmune Holistic Healing Group. And the listeners can join that group and be a part of that group to learn more about Sjögren's and learn about essential oils that help with Sjögren's. And if they want to get in touch with me and talk to me, then they can go on my website, which is sjögrensolution.com, Sjögren's and then solution. So there are two S's in it, sjögrensolution.com. And they can get an appointment with me, a free complimentary call, and we can get in touch and decide and evaluate if I'm the right fit for them and they're the right fit for me or not, and go from there.
Fantastic.
Yay.
And all of those will be linked in our show notes. So you swipe up, you tap at wherever your show notes are and whatever app you're listening to us on, you'll find those links. Yay.
Yeah. And I do have a free gift on my website, which is a quick start guide for people to heal Sjögren's. So it's called Sjögren's Healing Sjögren's Quick Start Guide, which is available on my website, www.sjögrensolution.com.
Oh,
perfect.
People, go check that out if you have Sjögren's. That's awesome. Yay. Thank you for putting that out into the world, Divya. It's been so wonderful talking to you. You have such great energy. And I still am so inspired by the fact that you went through all that pain, all that suffering, and you healed yourself and now you're helping others. I just think that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's really my mission. Because when I see people suffering, the only thing that comes to my mind is, healing is possible. So for all the listeners who have Sjögren's and who really believe in, not feeling like victims of Sjögren's, but actually thriving with Sjögren's, I just want to let them know that I'm there. So get in touch with me.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful talking to you. Yay.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful talking to you both, Chelsea and Casey. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Coming on.
Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast and want to show your support, please leave a review, share the podcast with others, or join us in the Spoonie Hub.
If you'd like to connect with Cassie and I, you can find us on Instagram at The Real Spoonies Unite, or on our website, mywellnesshub.co, where you can find all sorts of resources and you can find the Spoonie Hub. Talk to you soon.